Guys, welcome back to Take 10, Week 2. I'm Maddie, and again, I'm going to be here with you guys today, and we're going to keep talking about Chapter 1, Conflict and Violence. Okay, so just like last time, we're going to start with an icebreaker question. So we're going to do this the same way we did before. I'll read the question, and then I'll have you guys break up into partners, and you can share your answer with your partner, or if you're in a small group, go ahead and share with the whole group. Whatever you guys want to do. So the question is, do you have a hobby? And if so, what is it and why do you enjoy doing it? Okay, I'll have you guys pause the video and then come back after you've had the chance to answer. Okay, so I'll go ahead and give you guys my answer to this question. So my hobby, I really enjoy running, whether it's with my friends or my dog. I enjoy getting outside in nature and exercising and spending time talking with my friends or anything like that. So yeah, that's my hobby. Okay, so last time I told you guys we were going to start with a little bit of a review. So the two questions that I told you guys I would ask were the definitions of conflict and violence. So hopefully you guys remember what we talked about last time, and I'm going to ask that you take a minute to pause the video and answer these two questions. What is conflict and what is violence? And after you guys have shared what you remember, go ahead and come back. Okay, so we're going to go over quickly the first question. What is conflict? So if you guys remember, a conflict is a disagreement between people. That's it, just a disagreement. We said that conflict is a constant in our lives, and it's unavoidable. There's nothing we can do about that, so we have to figure out how we're going to deal with it. We also said that conflict is not always bad, and it can actually be an opportunity for positive change. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. So now, what is violence? Hopefully you guys remembered that violence is anything that harms yourself, someone else, or a place or a thing. So violence can be physical, it can be emotional, or it can be psychological. And we said that violence is not a good response to conflict. It's not a good response to conflict because it is hurtful to yourself or to others, and it can have other consequences like getting you in trouble, and also it doesn't actually solve the problem, it just escalates it and makes it worse. So that's what we talked about last time, conflict and violence. And we'll continue that a little bit more today. So let's get started. Okay, so the question that I asked you guys to think about last time was, how can conflict be good? So hopefully you guys took some time to think about it. I'm going to ask that you take some more time now to think about it if you didn't get the chance already. And I'll ask that you pause the video and take a minute to share your thoughts with the class. In what ways can conflict be good? It'd be really great if you guys could come up with a list on the board or on a piece of paper. Just come up with a list of the ways that you think conflict could be good. So I'll have you guys go ahead, pause the video, and take a few minutes to do that. Okay, so how can conflict be good? I came up with a few examples of how I think conflict can be good. But let's just say that there are a lot more ways that it could be good, and I'm sure you guys came up with some of them. So this is not necessarily the right answer, it's just what I thought of. So I think that conflict can be good in that it produces new ideas and fosters creativity. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're having a disagreement with a friend about the way to do something, maybe you think you should do it this way, and your friend thinks you should do it this way, and neither of you are going to be happy if you do the other person's way. So basically, the two options you have are no good. So what are you forced to do? You're forced to come up with a third option that you both can live with. So it forces you to be creative and come up with a new idea. And onto my second thought, conflict can help you to solve problems. So that one I think is pretty self-explanatory. Conflict, you're disagreeing about a problem and you're going to figure out how to solve it working as a team and together. And then finally, I thought that conflict can be an opportunity to improve a relationship. So for this one, say you want to go to McDonald's for dinner, but your friend wants to go to Burger King, and you don't agree. Well, as you're having to talk and work out this conflict to figure out the right solution, you're having to communicate with each other. And in communicating, you're learning more about them and you're strengthening your relationship. So that's how I think it can improve your relationships. So those are just the reasons I came up with, but I'm sure you guys came up with some really great ones too. Okay, so now I have a TED Talk called The Beauty of Conflict. It's about a 15-minute TED Talk. We're not going to watch the whole thing, only about the first 2 minutes. But I'll ask that you guys pay attention and listen closely to what he has to say. I think he has some pretty good thoughts on how conflict can be a good thing.
Heard it described as a volcano that's about to erupt, a hurricane. Like slow dancing, barefoot on broken shards of glass. Like trying to hold back the ocean with a broom. War, the plague, like being drawn and quartered. These are just a few examples of thousands of metaphors I've collected about conflict. What's conflict like for you? Your metaphor matters because it often reflects how you think and feel about conflict. So it makes sense that if you think conflict is the plague, you'd probably want to avoid that and avoid everybody else that has it too. If it's like trying to hold back the ocean with a broom, I would imagine that feels frustrating and futile. So what do you do when the waves just keep coming? Because conflict washes ashore in all of our relationships, at home, at work, in our neighborhoods. You've probably already been given advice on how you should deal with it. Communicate. But sometimes talking about it seems to make it worse. Don't go to bed angry. So you stay awake and now you're angry and tired. Or you just have to learn to compromise. But if your compromise has ever felt like you don't get what you want, I don't get what I want, but at least together we're mutually miserable. Now, I'm sure all of this advice is well-intentioned, but it treats conflict as if it's a problem. What if conflict isn't a problem? What if it's a solution? What if it's not negative, but full of beauty? After 15 years of studying, researching, teaching and training in conflict, I've learned to see it differently. I've been able to see the power it has to transform us, our relationships, and the world around us. It can be difficult, though, to create that change. And it means we have to start looking at conflict differently. No matter how negatively you think about conflict right now, it is possible to change that. It takes 3 keys in order to do that.
Okay.
The first is to recognize.
So, for the rest of the video, there are about 12 to 13 minutes left. He's going to talk about these 3 keys to transforming conflict. It's a great video if you guys have the time and want to take it to watch the rest of the video, but I thought we could just talk about them, and so that way we have some time to talk about some other things too. So the 3 keys to transforming conflict. First, he's going to say that you need to recognize what the conflict is really about. Sometimes the conflicts we have aren't exactly what they appear to be at first. So say you have a friend who really wants to go to McDonald's for dinner, but you're saying, I don't want to go to McDonald's for dinner, I want to go so-and-so. Now, the problem might be that you really don't like McDonald's, or it could be something else. It could be that you feel that this friend always takes control in your relationship. They're always telling you what to do, they're bossing you around, and that is frustrating to you. So it's important to know, what is the conflict really about? Is there something deeper going on? And second, he says it's important to recognize when you're stuck. In some situations, there are certain things that you can't compromise on, or you're really unwilling to. And sometimes it's important to realize those instances, and also the instances where you won't be able to get exactly what you want. So say that your mom is insisting you clean your room and you just really, really don't want to. In some instances, you have to kind of take the loss. It's important to figure out when you need to compromise and when you don't need to. And in some situations, you're stuck. And it's important to know that so you know how to respond. And finally, he says that you need to learn to speak responsibly. In a conflict, your words matter just as your actions do. And it's important that you take responsibility for what you say, because it does matter and it will affect the outcome of the conflict. So those are the 3 keys he talks about. And if you can do each of those things, you can transform conflict into a positive thing that can improve your life. It can improve your relationships, it can improve your outcomes, and it can help you solve problems. Okay, so Take 10 has several principles. They're kind of just foundational statements that we believe to be true. So let's go through them now. Okay, so the Take 10 principles. First, every person has the right to safe, violence-free places. Second, disagreements and arguments are normal and to be expected. Every person has the right to feel however they feel. No one has the right to hurt someone or destroy something because of the way he or she feels. Weapons have no place in resolving conflicts. Every person has the right to choose how they will solve problems and express themselves. Talk it out, walk it out, wait it out, and know when to get help can work in a violence-free zone. People have the power to decide if a place shall be a violence-free zone or a Take 10 area. And finally, there is a connection between respect, personal power, and self-esteem. So these are the Take 10 principles. They're kind of our foundational beliefs. And we're going to do a little activity with them that will help you kind of engage with them more and figure out your thoughts on each of them. So we have 2 activities for today. The first one has to do with these Take 10 principles we just discussed. So first, I'll have you guys split up into either groups or pairs, depending on the size of your class. And then each group needs to be assigned 1 or more of the Take 10 principles to discuss. Then in your groups or partners, I want you guys to take a few minutes to defend or argue against the principle or principles you were given. So for example, if you were given the first principle, every person has the right to safe, violence-free places. If I were in this group, I would say, yes, I agree that every person has the right to safe, violence-free places. We all deserve that. Do I think that in all realities we do have access to those places? No. But should we have the right to? Yes. So you would do something similar to that, and in your group you'll either agree with the statement or disagree with the statement, and explain why. Then after you've had the chance to discuss it for a few minutes, I want you guys to come back into a big group and share your thoughts with everyone. Talk about whether you agree or disagree with the principle and defend your answer. And then our second activity. So we have 2 questions for you, similar to last week. And we have a Google form that you can use to answer the questions. However, if you guys don't have access to computers or if your teacher doesn't want you guys to have them out right now, it'd also be acceptable just to write down your answers to these questions. But we'd really love if you could use the Google form, because then that gives us some feedback and we can see what you're thinking. So the 2 questions. First, what was your response to the Beauty of Conflict TED Talk? What did you think? Did it make you feel a certain way? And if you also want to use this question to talk about how conflict can be good, feel free to do that too. Then the second question, choose one of the Take 10 principles to discuss. It can be the one that you discussed in your group, or it can be a different one that another group discussed but you felt really strongly about. And then just say if you agree or disagree with the principle and why. So those 2 questions, and then if you're using the Google form, answer those 2 and also share your answer from the icebreaker question at the beginning. And then let us have that submitted. Okay, for next time. So for next time, we're going to be moving on to Chapter 2, Values and Principles. So I need you guys to answer the questions on the Google form for this week. And also, if you could remember the definition of conflict and how it can be a good, positive thing in our lives. Because I'll be doing a little review just like we did in this video. And then finally, if you could think about What does it mean to value something? And that will get us started for our next chapter. Thanks, guys!